Hi, my name's Nick Broughton, and I am a Randomfish. Hit the subscribe button and let's all be Randomfishes together, shall we? Now, what was I going to talk about? I've taken a week off because I tried talking about this last time and I needed to let it sink in, I guess. As most of you know, through this show and through this channel, I say show, I have mostly been watching stuff on Netflix and that kind of thing, and it's a lot of fun, especially to come up with new things and find new ways of doing stuff. But I have decided that as of next week, I'm going to start looking at YouTube stuff. And when I say YouTube stuff, I don't mean YouTube originals, this new stuff that's kind of been cropping up on YouTube recently. I want to take a look at fan films. Basically, things about these fan films is that they appear to be cropping up all over the place, and they have been for a very long time. Something I thought about was when I was reviewing the Walter Benesiak 5-part miniseries, if you will, the Infinity Trinity, it was this thing I had, this thing that I felt where I was a bit happier to see something being done on YouTube, being done by ordinary people with ordinary ideas and with good ideas. And, you know, they had these fantastic notions about how to do things and how to film certain things. And I wanted to just look at that sort of stuff and not have to... I guess my main priority here is to give credit to the fans of the world. Because, let's face it, people, in recent years, fandoms have been getting kind of out of hand. We've been... things falling over, that's not good. But there's things that I've noticed where certain fandoms are... they are attacking themselves. And they're attacking each other. And it's just not good anymore. It's not fun and it's not great for any of us. So I decided, purely as someone who is a fan and who does not think that the toxicity of fandom is something that we should be focusing on, I'm going to take a look at the fan films made about various things over the next year or so. While I know that I focus a lot on Netflix stuff, very much so, this will probably be one of the last ones that I'll be doing. Primarily for two reasons. Number one, the fact that other people will have probably gotten to this stuff way before me. Because let's face it, for example, Titans Season 2 just came out on Netflix, and I binged that, and I was going to talk about it today. And then I remembered that everyone's already talked about it. Everyone who's a critic anyway has already talked about it because they watched it when it first got released way back then on the original streaming platforms. And, you know, Netflix is great, but it is slow off the mark when it comes to other things like this. Which is why I wanted to focus primarily on Netflix original stuff. But let's take a look at one of the last Netflix things I want to talk about for a while. That being a show called The Neighbour. Spanish TV show. Yes. Spain, of all places. I loved certain things being done on Netflix by people who are, shall we say, yeah, you know what, just people who aren't traditional British or American speakers. Because frankly, A, I feel like they can speak the language absolutely fine, but two, it gives you a sense of a grander scale of the world. And it gives you a grander sense of what's going on out there. And for someone who has mostly been in England for most of his life, I've been out of it 3, maybe 4 times over the course of my life. And it's a big wide world out there, and while I'm not able to go out and explore it myself right now, due to physical issues and all that other stuff, I can at least watch things through the visual mediums. And this, The Neighbour, is actually a pretty good one. It's set in Spain, it's set in Madrid, I believe, where we have a 20-something-year-old guy who gets mysteriously given cosmic powers and a weird suit, and he has to learn the powers of being a superhero, all the while trying to get his girlfriend back, trying to maintain a job, and just being a lazy ass. So, a lot of comedy shows have done this. Heck, heck, there's a film out there that did it great, Hancock. Great film. But there was something about this that really gripped me, and it wasn't the fact that it was in Madrid. What gripped me was the frankness of it all. Just to give you a quick heads up, let me just quickly double check things here on my laptop. Because, for example, you've got the characters of Xavier, Lola, Jose, and Lula. Julia, I apologize. Julia and Lola are best friends, and Javier and Jose become friends over the course of the season. But this is where it gets a little more interesting to me, because a lot of these superhero films that have been released recently are about the heroes making a political difference, making a social difference, trying very hard to be an impact on the world in a positive way. And that's fine, that's great to see, especially in superhero films. Marvel have done this fantastically well. DC are kind of commenting on social issues more than anything else, I think, at this point. That's kind of their field, I feel. So, how exactly does the Neighbour do this? Well, Javier is given cosmic powers by this superhero. And he also gets a medallion that when he waves his hand in front of it, a red costume and red helmet come on to him. And they're stuck there, to the point where he actually has this costume that he cannot take off until he waves his hand in front of the medallion. There's also a little thing that he has, a little gun thing that he has that has pellets in it. And when you take out the pellet and you digest it, you drink it, you eat it, sorry. And you gain superpowers. You gain the ability to fly, you gain super strength, you gain practically invulnerability, really. Which is always a lot of fun to see. So, why am I talking about this? It's actually kind of fun. And it's a fun show to watch. Because Javier is ultimately one of the most weird, lazy weirdos you could ever possibly come across. And they all talk, like I said, they all talk very frankly in this show. For example, there's a bit where Lola, who was Javier's girlfriend at the beginning of the show, she breaks up with him, I think it's after he gets his powers, or they're just about to break up before he gets his powers. It's a whole thing in the first episode. But she breaks up with him, and they try to be friends, they try to be single, they try to do all that sort of thing, and then at the end of the series they try and get back together because he really wants her back and he's doing his best to try. And it's a weird thing to see because the way she kind of talks is very much how what I would say real people talked. There's a moment in the series where she has to write an article about being honest, about how we are in the world and we're being honest. And she has to be honest for 24 hours in order for this to work. And there's a brilliant bit where she goes to tell a lie. She always goes to tell a lie first, and then she stops. She has to stop herself and ums and ahs before she can actually say the legitimate truth. Which, I have to say, is something that completely boggles my mind. Because to me, anyway, I just love how this is a thing. I love how it's hard for people to tell the truth, and it was encapsulated in that moment, in those moments throughout the entirety of the episode anyway. Because I do think it's hard for a lot of people. I think it's hard for people to tell the truth sometimes. And the thing that always got me about the show was this willingness that the show has to tell the truth, but also to tell about social issues. Because one of the other big things about the show, at least kind of one of the big things about the show anyway, is that Julia, the other character, and Jose become flatmates for a while, due to the fact that Jose moves into the building and moves in with essentially a drug dealer. And he freaks out and he goes to leave, kind of being like, I'm not cut out for this, this is not going to happen, I need to study, I need to pass my exams, all this sort of thing, and I need to get out of here. And he goes to leave and he runs into Lola, who then very quickly sets him up with Julia, in the flat because Julia's roommate also got kicked out because he was a sleazeball. Which is absolutely brilliant. Lola and Julia's friendship is that kind of thing where Lola's the very cautious one and Julia's just very frank and very sort of, what the hell, what's wrong with you, get out, kind of mentality. And it's great because one of the things that we discover about Julia is that she's very well-minded. She's very much a strong thinker on these things. And one of the things that we discover very quickly is that the entire neighborhood is being almost taken over by gambling establishments. And she makes this comment about how the people in the world are getting less and less okay with being nice. And how she kind of is giving up on the idea of karma being something that sort of comes along and sets things right, because why would it when no one else appears to have been dealing with this, no one else appears to be being set right, and all this sort of thing is just it's happening to her. And what I kind of love is this thing where she becomes a part of what's basically the karma squad, where they go around basically setting people right. Like, someone does something really stupid and they go up and go, the karmic squad are here, and they punt, they do something awful to his car, or they do something awful to his flat, or they give him karmic justice, basically. Which is very cool. And Lola is a journalist. I use that in inverted commas because, frankly, even she doesn't believe she's a journalist at that point. She knows she's just trying to get followers on Instagram. She's trying to get people to notice her. It's less about the integrity of the story and more about sort of like it's clickbait, which I love the idea of. Like, I love this fact that she's starting to realise that this brand of journalism that she's in is just about clickbaity references and whatnot. Especially when, after Xavier gets his suit and his powers, she's making a video talking about something really, really serious, and he's flying behind her. And she thinks that they're all following her or all liking her video because of the thing that she's talking about, when in actuality they're talking about the flying guy behind her. I think that's funny as hell. I think that's a brilliant concept. Something I always thought was kind of fun anyway, is this inbuilt weirdness, I guess, of the show. And the fact that the show is just, it's the most out of nowhere thing to happen. This guy just sort of crash lands and gives you powers and then dies. Talking about the actors now, the actors are, it's all very believable. And I say this not because I'm shocked that it's all believable. I'm shocked that these are people who have amazing talent. They have amazing talent, and it annoys me, I guess, on a slightly different level that they don't. It doesn't feel like these guys are sort of being used a lot more, sort of more in what I would refer to as more mainstream cinema. The Neighbour is a good show, don't get me wrong, but it's not mainstream to me. It's not mainstream to, people of my sort of world, as it were, which I think is a big shame, because these guys are great. This is the first time I'm seeing these actors on screen, I think, and I just loved them. I loved all of them. They were brilliant. So I am going to look things up a lot more. I am going to find out these things a lot more. And something that also intrigues me is it's this thing within the show where you have these characters who are trying like hell to not be a part of something, or trying to not do something that they know isn't particularly right, and yet they do it anyway. This show is, at its heart, I think, about the flaws of human nature. Xavier is possibly one of the most flawed people in the world, yet he discovers, or at least believes he discovers, that he has been chosen to be a superhero. To a point where he actively says to Jose, he says, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if I can do this because I am an awful person. Here, take the pills that give me powers, take the medallion, you be the superhero, not me. And Jose is 100%, he gets to be 100% on board with this. And he even takes one of the pills going, I'm going to fly, I'm going to have super strength, blah, 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 all this stuff's going to happen. And he becomes violently ill and he nearly dies because of this. And I think that's a thing for him. I really do. And I love how it's a place where someone who could have been so much better at it, and someone who is just feels completely wrong for it, and it's this complete mismatch of the whole thing, and I love how that's a thing for this. I'm not going to spoil the ending of the show because I think that's something that you guys need to watch for yourselves. I will end all of this video, I guess I should say. I can't preface anything anymore. I've started the video. But I can end this video by simply saying to you this. I am aware that it is in Spanish and there are English subtitles. Please do not stop watching because of that. Because of two things. Number one, the acting is stellar. So watch it for that alone. And number two, honestly, don't surrender the idea of a good film because it's not in English. And I say this knowing that a lot of people won't, but there are those that do. And I'm ashamed to say that for a small time in my life, I was one of those people. I would not have watched a film for a while if it wasn't made by one of the modern studios. I grew up in an era where black and white films were kind of being mocked. I grew up in a place where I don't think I would have had as much access to black and white stuff. And I mean, I guess my biggest thing to say at this is to just go and watch the show. Because it's funny. Because it's well acted. And because, quite frankly, what else are we going to do? With that being said, Randomfish out.